Hey everybody, what's going on? Anthony Marquis here, and the man with the plan. I was pointing in the wrong direction. This way.
There.
Fernando Movies, everybody. What's going on, Fernando?
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I know we haven't done one in a while. I missed doing this.
Yeah, we usually do a Tuesday night, but we do it when we can. We're at the mercy of the guests.
Oh yeah. But I have to say, because I don't want to waste time. Okay. It's not that I'm wasting time. I always love talking with you, Fernando.
So, thank you.
I do. But I'm really, really excited and I'm really nervous about the show tonight. It's somebody I really admire. I think he's a fantastic artist. He's worked on everything from The Rocketeer to The Spirit to create her own book, The Saviors. And I mean, it's Spider-Man. It's all over. He's done everything. He's worked in Little Archie, I think. I hope that I'm okay to say that. So much great stuff. Just a true talent. And I'm really excited to welcome on Mr. J.BONE. What's going on, Jay? Welcome.
There he is.
Man, I gotta say, I'm really nervous to have you on. I'm so excited. Fernando knows I never get nervous about people. I'm like super nervous.
No, I've never seen him like this.
Just jittery, just flop sweat.
Oh, it's horrible. I put a lot of powder on before I came on because I was just covered in wet. It's sad.
Oh, you were worried about the head shine?
Oh, it's bad as it is. Look at that. It's like a halo that goes off all the time.
Well, you need to wear a toque.
Oh, that's what Dan DiDio said. He goes, "That's why I wear a baseball cap." He goes, "It hides the shine." I was like, "Ah, makes sense." But so, what's going on? Where are you at right now? How are you handling the whole situation?
These trying times of crisis in which we are all taking part in these horrible moments.
Yes.
I'm doing good because it really honestly hasn't changed. I'm not a guy that goes out, so working from home I was already doing, and I love staying in. If I'm not reading, lately what I've been doing a lot of is watching TV. Like that's kind of been a constant thing. Daily, I'm just watching hours and hours of television, which I wouldn't ordinarily do.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only thing that changed that, and being able to just go to the grocery store when you're short on something. You can't just do that.
We just throw caution to the wind. We go straight to the grocery store. That's not true. It's not true. What are you watching right now? What are you checking out?
Oh, I'm binge watching. I guess you can call it that. New Girl, which I saw when it first came on. The show with Zooey Deschanel.
Oh yeah.
And we froze for a second there. Yeah, Zooey Deschanel show. Yeah, I'll just catch up. That I just finished Haunting of Hill House. So I went from horror to comedy.
The Haunting of Hill House, is that the one that was on Netflix where it's like the ghosts follow the family when they get older, and it's got the kid from E.T. who's all grown up as the dad?
Yes, Henry Thomas is the dad. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome show.
And super creepy, and just some good there's hidden ghosts throughout the show. So as you watch, it pays to look in doorways and things, because there'll be a ghost standing there staring at either the camera or at the character.
That was one of the, well, I don't want to say the first shows, because I've watched, I guess, a lot of shows now at this point. But it's it's legitimately kind of eerie and terrifying at points, and it has some real scares. Fernando, if you haven't seen it, you need to watch this.
Is that based on a Richard Matheson story?
Oh, I was going to say Shirley Jackson. I think it's a Shirley Jackson one, because there's also Richard Matheson wrote Hill House, I think.
That might be what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and then there's Haunting of... I keep getting confused because there's Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting, Richard Matheson's Hill House. And the other thing I just was thinking, the reason I actually saved this for what now is a good time, quarantine time, was it was a show I wanted to watch. Like, I'll have TV shows on sometimes when I'm inking that you don't have to pay attention to. But like Hill House, you've got to pay attention to it. So I have to have nothing else going on so you can catch those ghosts.
What type of stuff do you like to watch, or do you find yourself drawn more so to like suspenseful kind of things? Are you like happy stories? What kind of drags you in? What do you enjoy?
I'm I'm a big horror guy lately. I go through phases, but horror is kind of something I just keep checking out. Like the other day, I rented Underwater, the Kristen Stewart movie that's like deep, deep, deep down in the Marianas Trench. Thing goes wrong, and there's just Cthulhu level terror going on.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I love horror movies. We're always, I don't know. I love Stranger Things. I'm a big fan of that. The Haunting of Hill House is great. Netflix seems to have a wonderful library of these strange horror type stories or suspenseful things that you want to check out. And I could just go through them nonstop, but they're great. But so what were you geared towards when you were younger? Like what kind of got you into wanting to start doing things with your imagination and drawing and whatnot?
Comics and storytelling, man. And this is one of my favorite questions too, because I love I was terrified of horror when I was a kid, but my favorite movie that I saw at the drive-in was Clash of the Titans.
Oh wow.
Which is like has that amazing Medusa scene, but it's also like 80s.
We're talking the original, right?
The original, yeah. Harryhausen.
We had to clarify that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and when I was a kid, I remember seeing Flash Gordon.
Oh,
yeah. Again, the Dino De Laurentiis. Raiders of the Lost Ark. I saw at the theater, and E.T. So for me, science fiction, monster movies. That's like when we would go to the video store, and you rent a video cassette for like 99 cents or whatever. I was always just right in the fantasy, sci-fi, action section, trying to find like hoping that the movie I pick wouldn't be a big piece of shit, because a lot of times it's a cheap, low budget, But
it's always a gamble with sci-fi.
It is, and you've probably seen any number of, like, my dad would just rent anything, and so I've seen any number of B movie, pieces of crap. But that's what I always loved. Those are the books I always read. Like, I was totally into sci-fi when I was, if I go to the library, it would be science fiction books I'd be looking for.
Did that translate into the comics you read?
It didn't really, actually. No, I was a Spidey guy when I first started buying comics. I think maybe I was more into the silly superheroes. Spidey, Plastic Man. Those were my favorite guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Plastic Man. Come on. No, I'm teasing.
Oh.
Plastic Man's great. I'm not judging. I am a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that and the I think we've talked before about French books. Like I was into Asterix and Obelix.
Yeah.
And that was something I would have to get from the library. Like, I didn't know where to go buy those, the English translations of Asterix, Obelix, and Tintin.
So when did you start trying to mess around with the drawing? Like, when did you start thinking that was something you could look into as an actual profession?
As a career?
Yeah.
Maybe not really until high school. I remember, like, I was always drawing all the time. And when you're hanging out with your friends, when you're a kid, there's the drawing kids. And then if my friends they'd want to go outside and play. And I was always just wanting to draw. Then I got to high school, and I remember we had career day. And I just thought, like, well, I want to be a Disney animator. How can I dress up as a Disney animator? And my mom, I think think she looked up somewhere careers in art, and she found like freelance artist or something. What was it? Oh, commercial artist. A commercial artist would wear a suit and carry a portfolio. So I think I was wearing one of my dad's like dress shirts, a tie, and we had this little suitcase thing that we just figured like that's probably what a portfolio looks like. And then so I had to explain to everybody what I was because it's such a not obvious, there's doctor and other things that are much more obvious uniform.
Was your family on board with your decision to want to do that kind of a thing?
Oh, totally. Yeah. My parents used to sign me up for stuff that I didn't appreciate until years later when I think about it. They would sign me up for the art programs at the library or the local art gallery. Just always supportive of me. And they would just say, oh, you've got the art class thing this week. Don't forget, here's your lunch. Don't forget. And it's something I wouldn't even have thought of. But yeah, they sent me off to that stuff because they knew I loved art so much.
That's great. So then, all right. So now we're moving through high school.
Yep.
Now we're starting to get into the next step. Now we start applying to schools. You go into an art school. And then at this point, do you start trying to think, maybe I don't really want to do comics. Maybe I want to do something else. Or were you just, this is what I want to do?
I was always art, but I wanted to take animation. And because I just thought, the dream is to work for Disney. So I applied here. I'm in Ontario. So we've got Sheridan College is sort of the big, at the time was the big animation school. And I applied, didn't get in, but as a backup, I also applied to illustration. And I ended up getting illustration. So I thought, okay, I'll do a year of that and then go do animation. And in that first year, all of my roommates were in animation, pretty much. I would say like there were 5 of us that all lived in a house together, 5 or 6. And 3 of them were in animation, and they fucking hated it. It was just repetitive. Like I censored myself there in case people wonder. I could see that it was repetitive. It was not at all what I would want to be doing. And meanwhile, I was doing illustration where I'm learning perspective, life drawing, different like gouache techniques, acrylic paints, pen and ink. I'm learning all these things where I was like, I think this is more useful. I still didn't want to do comics. Like that wasn't my thinking. I still thought I could do design or something in the animation industry. And then somewhere around second or third year, I just thought, I think I wanted I knew with comics, I could do an entire story the way I'd want to do if I was doing, working in animation, but it would be all me. So it's just my name on the comic. I'm the writer, the director, the actors, I'm everything. So I kind of thought that sounds ideal. Like, and somewhere around second year, I would say I started to really put a focus on taking everything I was learning and applying it to comic book techniques, storytelling, and all of that kind of stuff.
Had you kept up reading comics up to this point, or was there a point where you had walked away and kind of left it behind? Are you still a fan?
Yeah, I was still a fan. I was pretty broke. So for most of college, I was maybe only getting to the comic shop once a month. And then, buying a stack of stuff and then being broke for the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I was kind of still keeping up on my reading. I definitely dropped them. There was a period where I was completely broke, like when I first started working in comics. Then I had to I couldn't buy anything. That was probably about a year of just not getting any, or getting, a little bit here and there when you get some spare change.
So what was your first, I guess, pro gig? Like what did you jump into that you felt you finally had gotten a name, you finally had that credit, and you were able to show something around that you were proud of?
Actually, it's sitting right here. I've been coloring my very first book is, there it is. I was working. I actually ended up working in animation.
Oh, did you really?
Right after college. So in my third year of college, Toy Story was the big movie that was just about, like, they were still working on it when I was in school. So there was all this buzz for animation, and so in the in third year of college, all these companies come into the school. So we had a ton of animation studios come by looking for both animation students, and they were picking out of illustration as well. Video games were kind of a big thing. So I had a really fortunate, like, last year where I applied at EA Games, which they were in Vancouver. There was another animation studio, and then I ended up getting a job at Nelvana. So Nelvana did Care Bears way back in the day, Beetlejuice. Trying to think of shows that people would actually know. Because I worked. What's that?
I was saying, list the ones that people won't know. Those are always more fun. It forces them to have to Google it afterwards. It'll be great.
Well,
make up a few, really confuse them.
Just make things up. I ended up working on Franklin the Turtle. So it was kind of like, anybody with kids.
Yeah.
That was Franklin the Turtle, right?
Yeah. Franklin the Turtle.
I worked on that for 2 years. But I was very frustrated working on it. So I started working on a Space Girl comic book, which was my first published thing. So I actually was just doing this just to give me something to do, so I wasn't going crazy drawing bushes and trees and log houses and stuff. So I had this at comic conventions, was like showing it around. I think that might have been the first year I went to San Diego. So I was showing editors my work there, and it was just, I only had maybe 10 pages of it done. And then the company that picked it up, I don't even know if they still exist, but Sirius.
Oh, I remember them.
They, I don't even remember where they were out of, but they were Americans. So they just said, like, yeah, we'll publish your first book. And I think that's a long way around of answering your question, but yeah, that was this is exactly what I want to do too. It's like pinup space girls, monsters, sci-fi, a little bit of like Clash of the Titans monster stuff in here. Like,
it's a beautiful book. When I was working at Dynamite, one of the guys that worked there as well knew that I'm a big fan of your work and whatnot, and he brought it in and he showed it to me. He's like, "Have you ever seen this?" And I was like, "No." Check this out. And I was like, "It's great." I mean, really. Hey, look, if anybody's watching, if you never picked one up, you need to pick it up. Jay, you have to tell people where people can find it, because it's really a cool book. And if you're coloring it again, does that mean that you have intention of re-releasing it, or what's the plan with that?
That's my plan. Yeah, quarantine plans. I'm trying to pick up the stuff that I've let slide when I've just been busy for so many years doing either inking or various things. Like this left on a cliffhanger, intentionally, possibly to never continue, but because that's just what it's meant to be, is one of those old cliffhanger kind of things. So yeah, I'm trying to color it so that I can maybe release it on Gumroad or one of the pay what you can kind of sites. And there's a whole like 30-page sequel that I did that's penciled, like fully penciled. I probably won't use those pages, but I want to continue the story. There's a couple of characters that I had in there that I have a story fully written for that I want to try and draw while we've got this all the time in the world. So yeah, that will hopefully come, like, maybe in the summer. I should have it all finished coloring and up on something.
So did you do everything on Space Girl, like write, pencil, ink?
Yep, lettering.
Wow.
Yeah, this was a big, like, I think this is the neatest, the tidiest lettering. But yeah, all hand lettered, all this craziness. Because this gouache painting too, because this was all pre, like, the internet existed, but it was that very limited dial-up kind of internet. That's how old some of us are.
I remember having to go and, like, we had the family computer was off of the side of our kitchen growing up, and then, like, the family room was kind of off of that section. So we all used to, like, it was funny. We would all get together and, like, watch TV together as, like, a family. But then when I started getting older, and then when the internet invaded, this was probably like 1996. I remember, like, it would be like, get up and walk over to the computer, and then like you'd have to listen to the dial up, and and that whole thing, and it was great. It was wonderful. It was magical time to be alive. 1990.
You were 5, 6?
No, I was 1996. I was 12 years old.
Okay. This came out in 99.
Did it? See? So, hey, a cool thing with that, though, is that's pre-Kickstarter days. So how did you go about, because some people might be afraid of even going around trying to do Kickstarter or, all that kind of stuff. How did you figure out how to put together a comic at that point?
Oh, man. I don't know. Honestly,
Did you have any publishing experience at all at that point? Like, had you worked for any publishers or anything?
No, and
Wow.
I think. Let me think. So, I probably met Jay Torres around that time, and Jay had been working with a bunch of guys. Like, back then, they were all part of the same studio, but there was Francis Manipul, who's now like DC superstar. Who else was in there? There was like buddies of mine, Arthur Dela Cruz, like guys, and Jay Torres, who I ended up working with on the Alice and Dare books. So I probably had him telling me, like, these are the way pages. Didn't even know things like, what is it, pagination? The how many double page things you got to have to make a book. So I bet you I have a feeling it was probably Torres told me kind of how to put it all together. And then I know I sent pages to Sirius, so they did all the scanning or whatever was done.
So they handled all the really
after I was done art.
Very cool. So you do that book, and then how long is it until you start getting additional work? I mean, were you looking to be more of a penciler? Did you want to get into inking? What happens next in your career?
I worked almost immediately with Jay Torres on Alice and Dare. We did that with Oni Press. And this was, so it's funny, Kickstarter now, like Kickstarter, you could fund an entire book at this point, but this was like, I'm sure Sirius just said, okay, we can give you $1,000. And I'm telling you, I was broke. So I was kind of like, sounds good to me. At the time, I don't know what I was paying in rent, maybe $500 or something a month. And so I was getting the Alice and Dare money as well, but it was still really, really sketchy, or not sketchy, but low income. And also right around that time, I met, there's a guy I met who was working at the Silver Snail, which a lot of people might know. It's sort of like Toronto's big comic book shop.
Yeah.
I met a guy named Steve Minnelli who was friends with Darwin Cook. So I was just like chatting with Steve because he was always at the Snail. He worked there. And then he's like, we should meet Darwin because I think you and Darwin would get along. And then, of course, I met him and ended up working with him for, 20 years.
Wow.
But like without him, I don't know. I wasn't so good at setting goals. I just thought, I just want to keep drawing comics. So if Jay had an Alice and Dare story, that's what I would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with Paul Dini, I think, as well, because he was doing something with Oni Press. So we did the Cowgirl comic Mutant Texas together. So like Paul was another guy that kind of like working with him helped get my name a little bit up there. And then I inked that Gotham Girls miniseries that recently collected. I inked Mike Allred on something. So I guess I kind of came in more as an inker. And I was maybe known more for that. And still I think I'm known more for that than I am as a penciler.
So what do you think, especially, I mean, look, you're a great artist as well, but what in your opinion makes a great inker?
Makes a great inker? Oh man, I don't really know how to answer that. Because there are so many different ways to ink. I feel like you should know how to draw to be an inker. I don't know. You got me stuck.
You stumped right out of the gate.
Yeah, something might I'm flying here. Something might be later, but right now all I'm thinking is like
Well, so here's something that comes to mind. Like when you're inking somebody, do you like to? I mean, it's your style working with somebody. I always consider it to be like an ultimate collaboration. Whenever just comics in general.
Yeah.
What do you look to add? I mean, what's going through your mind when you approach a page? Yeah.
Are you just trying to get me to show pages from?
No, I don't even. No, I'm never worried about that stuff. Nah. But I mean, look, if you have your stuff, I always want to do your stuff. I hate my stuff, so it's cool.
I'm almost thinking in a like a reverse way. What makes a bad inker is somebody who doesn't bring anything to the art, but also takes away. Like when I'm inking something, I want to bring clarity to the art, whether that's like foreground separated from background, or making sure there's like if you know what the focus is on a page, make sure that that's like clearly defined. Whether that's like your thick and thin line. Usually it's thick and thin lines, but there's so many different inking techniques. Like there's great guys who do, like Jeff Darrow, who does like a deadline, and that's solid, but it's solid drawing.
Right.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of it is I want a juicy line. It's kind of, which, what does that mean?
That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah. It doesn't. That's why I think I have trouble with the answer, because I don't know. I just know it when I see it.
Right.
And for me, it's bringing like an energy or something to the page.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell you honestly, I think I loved inking Mike Allred, but when I look at it now, I think I was incredibly stiff. And he's such a fluid, like his characters are so like fluid and moving. I think I was looking at the pages and I'm like, I think I kind of killed some of the energy in his line, which is a bummer, because I was so happy to have that job and to be inking him.
So when you're working with an artist, and maybe this is just me also trying to pry into you so this way I know what not to do. How do you like a penciler to approach a page? Do you like things a little bit more unfinished? Do you like things really tight? Do you, how do you like to work?
It's funny because I take each penciler as they come. So you are a very tight pencil. Like you could basically print from your pencils. So the thing I need to bring is like exaggerating thick and thins, or maybe adding little texture. Like you always have texture in your stuff too. Darwin was more of a solid art like good cleanish pencils, but tons of shadows everywhere. So for Darwin, I never had to do anything like spotting blacks because it was all there. But there were little technique things that he would want me to do. Like he always liked leaving, like if you were to ink this hat, it would just be shadow, and then no line on the top of the hat. Like he loved to just leave empty, open lines and let the colorist fill in that shape. So there were little things like that I had to always remember when I was inking Darwin. Like Dan Parent, I ink him on Archie stuff, and he, depending on the job, like the B-52s when we did very tight pencils, but the thing we had just done before that, which I think was the married life of Archie, I would say it was a little looser. So I was going in and just tightening up clothing or wrinkles or adding little things, adding shadows in the background, stuff like that. That again, I knew because I've worked with Dan for so many years now. I knew they were things that he was okay with me, plussing up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say, like, pencilers, it all kind of depends on who you're working with.
So you start doing a lot of the inking work, and then, so now you're working with Darwin.
Yeah.
Are you doing a lot of finishes with Darwin at that point? Or what's the working relationship like there?
That process started out always with tight pencils. Like we did the 2 Spider-Man Tangled Web, the Valentine's one, super tight pencils. And then I penciled the Christmas one that he inked. And then the Spirit was where we got it. Like he would tightly pencil, say 3 issues, and then just do breakdowns for, a 4th issue. So just to give himself a break so he could then like start the next issue while I'm putting in the extra time on the the page or the pencils that were just sort of loose breakdowns. Not even loose. Like Darwin's always he was always really tight-ish. But there were definitely things like backgrounds were just left as this is a living room.
Does that make you angry?
No, because I'd worked with him for so many years at that point that, that was just Darwin's thing was he would just say, like, now you got to do some work, Bone.
That's so funny.
Put in a bit of effort on this one.
I love that. That's so funny. Honestly, that just made me laugh so hard it knocked the questions out of my head.
Were there inkers that you looked at? Like who, we asked you what makes a good inker. Who were the inkers that you like?
Oh man, well, I loved Chick Stone on Kirby, and Chick is like, that's juicy. That's like he would do fat, thick lines. So Chick was a guy I always loved. I love Ramona Fradon's artwork. She was doing Metamorpho. That's at least where I sort of discovered her. And that was just like, she just has a nice, delicate but fluid style. One of the, I'm doing tons of name dropping, but I thought I would just throw it out there to all the guys that I worked with. But Jamie Rich was one of the guys I worked with at Oni Press when I first started. And when I was handing in the inks, one of his criticisms was it looks like a coloring book, because I wasn't spotting blacks or anything. I was just basically doing outlines and maybe even just a bit of like thick outline, dead on the end, like inner line. So I just knew that I had to not ink like a coloring book, whatever that meant. And so that's when I tried to learn like different brush techniques, and again, getting thick and thin on things, heavier sides being, a fatter line, that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to think of other inkers I always loved. Bruce Timm was doing stuff at the time that I was just getting into comics. So anything he did, I was looking at. Mike Royer Mike Royer he inked Kirby on Commandy and Devil Dinosaur. I always liked John Byrne when he inked himself. I always thought that was a better, like, to me, that was maybe Carl Kessel would be the other guy that I would like on Byrne stuff. But
so talking about your inking, because I know you love answering this question. What type of pens and brushes do you use? What can you tell the people listening? What do you like to use when you're working?
I have a finely carved potato that I do most of my inking with. No, I'm a cheap brush guy, so this is like basically the dollar store brush at my art supply store. But it's like, I think these things are like $2.99 because I destroy the tips, and then my dirty bottle of ink. I think it's I have to look. I think it's Pelican ink that I'm using. Nope, I switched to Speedball.
Ah.
But yeah, I use brush as much as possible, and then I use the the Faber-Castell pit pens with just that. Like, sometimes if the details are too small for a brush, I'll go in and do faces or something with those. But for example,
what is that?
So this is from something that, are we even allowed to show it?
Yeah. Okay. I think the first 5 pages it's okay to show. We probably shouldn't. No, I'm teasing. Yeah, we could show it. It's fine.
This is what tough because I'm already showing it.
Yeah.
This is Anthony's pencils, my inks, and this is pretty much all brush. I maybe did a couple of like marker lines on the smaller faces, but yeah. And so, like, this arm, for example, this is where I was like, you've got so much detail in these guys in the background. I had to make sure the hand pops out, so it's got the thicker line. Simple. But
that was a fun page to draw. That was one of those things that I sent to you, and I was like, I hate my top panel. Yeah. Can you please help me fix that? Because I despised it so much.
What came out? I did very little, but were you happy with what the first panel looks like?
There was you did the pencils. I didn't like the way that I had put in. I got it over here. I didn't like the way the tire. Oh, I totally. So yes, I draw pretty tight in case anybody was asking. Yeah. But this top panel is horrible. I despise it. Like I noticed I completely missed filling in part of the door. There's little things like that really bother me. I didn't like the texture that I use as far as a shine, trying to render that in with pencil. And I wasn't particularly fond of the tire that was dropped in. And you did this great job of really small figures have always been a really big pain for me. I hate drawing tiny figures.
Yeah.
And you did a great job of making it look good because I despise drawing tiny figures. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. I kind of feel like that's something I learned from Darwin was all you've got is a couple of basic shapes. So if you can have a guy in a black suit, or in that case, the black jacket, and then you're making things silhouette, really. And then the opposite, you had Kato is over to the side. So he's wearing the white jacket with the black pants.
Yeah.
So simplify those shapes is, I don't know, not much else you can do when the figures are that tiny.
No. And it's funny because I don't even, it's with those sort of panels, people don't even, they look at them for literally 2 seconds and they move right past it, But to me, I'm like, that panel kept me up at night. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, those little people looked horrible. I need to fix it. But oh well, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
No, but that's stuff you will sweat it. And and then kind of realize, and it's important when you are sweating it to just go you know what, I can let it sit. work on something that you are confident with, and it'll either come to you or it's good enough. It's what's the saying? There is that saying that's like, it's done. It's where you just have to reach the point where it's not perfect, but it's done.
Yeah. And then, I mean, look, we're working together on Green Hornet. I love working with you because really it's such a kick for me to see like the inks come back. Because I've worked with some other folks, and nothing wrong with what they do, but it's just not what I want it to look like.
Right.
You know, and you do a great job of when I see it come in, I'm always just like, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's exactly how I imagined it looking in black and white. So it's always very exciting to see. I've had the privilege and I've been very happy to work with you on a bunch of covers. We've done a ton of covers together.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've done a few stories, but this will be the biggest thing that I've ever done. And working with you, you know, this will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a full issue. Like we did the Vampirella, which you also worked with Fernando. Like Fernando had some pages in there, which I inked I inked a few. I vaguely remember, but I don't know if I ever saw that whole book. So that's why I'm kind of drawing a blank on what that was for. That was Vampirella, right?
Yeah, there was a Vampirella. We did let's see, we did a Savage Vampirella. We've done,
but I only inked maybe 5 pages of yours, Anthony, and then like maybe 2 of Fernando's.
I think you did more than that.
Did
I have to double check on that.
Yeah, because I think what was going on, I was working on something else at the time, and maybe only had, but I must have been inking Dan on something.
I'm also horribly slow at times. I'm okay with admitting that.
Well, how much you have on the go?
Well, it's not really an excuse, you know. But I also I get really stuck in my head when I work, so it's a complete mess. Like I have my drawing board, and it's literally just pieces of tracing paper everywhere because I keep on redrawing things nonstop.
Really?
I can't stop. Fernando said it's like Photoshop, but
yeah,
it's this really strange method that I do. I just can't.
It's like Photoshop because it's layers of
layer upon layer upon layer of drawings.
No wonder your pencils are so tight. By the time you get to the page, you've drawn it how many times?
Like right now I have, let's see. So I have the actual page. Honestly, I feel like talking with you, I'm like, I could probably send this to you right now. This if I was to scan it in and send it over. But then I redraw the figures to tighten them. I draw the background on a separate layer. And then I draw, all the bottom panels. I'll do an initial pass, and then I redraw all those. And then I try to separate the figures at times, and I redraw them.
Yeah,
it's horrible. But it's because I want it to look perfect. I can't send it off otherwise.
Right.
I also don't want to let people down.
I almost feel like that that needs to be, mileage gets rid of that need for the perfection. You know, certainly there are guys, there are definitely pencilers who continue to be, you know, that level of
crazy
redrawing. Yeah, that level of crazy. Whereas I always said, like, the more you do, the more you'll find either your shortcuts, or you'll learn that you don't need to do you get the confidence to just sit down and go, boom, draw the page. And yeah, there'll always be pages that that just aren't coming to you, or you maybe need to sit and think about a little bit longer. Given a deadline, you kind of just have to go get the page out, draw it.
Oh yeah.
The storytelling's solid. You can draw the next page better, like that kind of idea.
Right. And it's funny. It's funny what you said there too with the deadlines. It's like, I think that when people realize, oh, all right, yeah, now the deadline is kind of approaching. I really need to start just getting these pages done. You quickly get to that point where you're like, this is good. Send it off. Ken Lashley said this really great thing. He goes, most pages, it is kind of what we were talking about with that first panel. Most people are going to pass through the pages, but you're going to have like maybe 4 real, like the sweet stuff that people want to see, and that's what you got to make look awesome. So he really tries to put a lot of that effort into that. But look, I think everybody wants their books to look good, especially when you're starting out and you're really working through it. So it's exciting, but we'll see. So how do you stay motivated while working on a project? We get this question a lot because students are always like, oh, well, how do you keep it going? How do you keep the energy going to get the pages done?
Yeah. How do you deal with the exhaustion of,
yeah.
Usually I like to either find a podcast or TV show or something, as mild distraction in the background. When I was inking, oh man, I just did my first 122 page graphic novel, and pencils, inks, colors. Honestly, by the time I was inking, I was just like, my energy for it was so low because I had just penciled 122 pages. Now I got to ink, and I was doing them all digitally for the first time. So what I used then to keep me going was audiobooks. And so I would just have an audiobook playing, and that would give me, like, say, I would set it to play for an hour. So I would know after an hour, get up, stretch, take a break, sit back down, because I want to hear the next chapter. Like, especially if I think the key is a good audiobook. So I was listening to some really good stories, and the only time I listen to audiobooks is when I'm working. So the book itself was kind of what made me keep at it. Like, that kept me going. So it would be like 2 or 3 in the morning because I don't want to stop the book, but I would still be working. So I was a little bit more productive. So that's what works for me is to have just a slight distraction. Nothing you have to pay full attention to. Like, if I had a movie going that was too good, that, like Hill House, Haunting of Hill House, I watched 2 episodes while I was working, but I was like, nope, I can't. That's a show I'll watch, or I can't have it playing because I need to be giving this my full attention.
That's great. What do you think about digital inking? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? What are your thoughts on it in general at this point of where it's at?
Yeah, well, I actually really liked I'm using Procreate with I think the dry, one of the brushes that just comes with the program. I didn't even tweak it or anything. I just used what was there. I really liked it in that I didn't have stacks and stacks of pages to have to rifle through. It was also easier to do what you do, which is the light boxing thing. Like, sometimes I would have a page that was penciled, and I'd be inking, and I'm like, oh man, that drawing underneath stinks. All I got to do is, like, pop down a layer, repencil a figure, and then ink that, finish the rest of the page, and then I would iCloud it to myself. Because I wasn't coloring it on my iPad. I was coloring it in Photoshop on my computer. So that was also super easy. No scanning. Like, can you imagine scanning 122 pages?
No.
No, thank you. Especially when you're on deadline. Like, it's hard enough sometimes when I was working with Dan Parent on stuff, I was inking blue line printouts, and I would have to scan, like, if I let the scanning wait, it would be, 22 pages. I'd have to sit here going like, oh, scan, clean them up in Photoshop. So digital inking really saved time as far as that goes, like fixing mistakes, that kind of stuff. So much easier.
What do you think is just like a general mistake that most people get into, like trying to break into the industry? What would you recommend to people that are trying to get into this to do before going out and showing their stuff?
Ego. And I remember you asked Mark Chiarello this question, and I think he had that story about the guy who, sat down with a portfolio and was like, take a look at my shit. I've had that experience too, where you get guys who are convinced that they are already a superstar, and they need to be getting the same page rate that like Jim Lee's getting at DC without earning and they might be good, but that ego is just like, we all have to work at everything. You have to work your way. You have to work, like, put the pages in, have something to show, not just pinups or how good your life drawing is or whatever. Show that you want to create and like make a book. So I would say ego is the big, like, that's the thing. When I see somebody with a big ego online, immediately I'm just like, yeah, you might be good, but I don't care. Of course, I'm not in a position to hire or anything like that. So
still, it doesn't matter. You want to work with people that are cool, and it's exactly what you're saying. I think that the ego side of it ties into a lot of different things, because you want to work with people that are, similar, that you don't want to have to feel like, oh, I got to praise your ego all day, or I got to be on the defensive because of something. You just want, look, everybody that works in comics, I think it's no big secret. People aren't really working in comics for the cash, so we're all working because we really enjoy doing this sort of business. It's a lot of fun. I think it's very rewarding, and it's a great career. But it's no place for people to be jerks. There's no fun in that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite projects of yours, I think you did just for fun, and that was when you took on X-Force #1 and totally redrew it.
Incredible.
I love that. And look, I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of the original X-Force, but you made me love it.
Oh, yeah?
Your version of it. I said, man, why couldn't it be like this? What made you do that?
Oh, man. Well, you know what it was? Either Mike Mignola. So Mike Mignola did a fill-in issue of X-Force, like back in the day, and somebody posted Rob's thumbnails for that, and I don't remember whether it was Mike that said, "Oh, by the way, these are the thumbnails that Rob gave me that I worked from." So you can see, how Mike took those and made them like Mignola pages, and either he posted those or Rob did. But like I say, I can't remember which. So I was looking at those and thinking, what if I got that job? What would I do? So that issue that I redrew was one that I've always loved, because there's a scene where Cable and Domino are in a bathtub, and the bathtub is easily like 12 feet long, because neither one of the characters, who are lying down, like, with their legs intertwined like that, neither one of them are resting their back on the bathtub. The bathtub is like a full foot away from it. So I was like, man, what if I got that as a thumbnail? Would I fix the bathtub, or would I leave it as is? So that was my approach. I was like, pretend these are the thumbnails. I'm going to use Rob's poses as much as possible, but I'm going to like do what I would do if this was the job I was just given. So, add more to the backgrounds, little things like that, add a little more like style to the trees. A couple of storytelling things I totally changed. I think you'd have to go through page by page, just even at this point, I don't remember what I did, but yeah, I tried to keep it to a bare minimum. Again, like I say, just because my thinking was Rob gave me the thumbnails, and that's the job, is to take those and turn it into a comic book.
That's what I loved about it, was the fidelity to the source material. There wasn't any of that, let me go in and fix this. No, you just drew it straight up, but you made it so much fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, that was a fun exercise for sure.
Did you ever send it to Rob?
Apparently somebody showed him on Instagram. There was I posted a few pages at one point, and maybe one of the pinup things, because I redrew a bunch of covers and pinups and things. Again, just for fun. And someone posted a link to Rob because he came in and went, "Oh, cool." I was like,
That's awesome.
"Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah." But he's a really good guy, and you know, he knows what's thought about him in the industry.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I definitely didn't want the approach to be me making fun of anything.
I never took it as that. You know, honestly, you know, with somebody that came, you know, people say things, but look, man, I also don't fully believe in comics having to be perfect. You know, like when you're saying, you know, with how big the tub is, I think that there's something kind of fun with that. You know, I think that that's, you know, comics are an exaggeration of reality anyway. So why not just make it absolutely, you know, wild? Let it be big. Do something a little bit different. And, you know, with what you did with it, you made it work. And, you know, you did your own take on it. I just think that that's so much fun. And I think it's a great exercise for artists to do that in general, is to take somebody else's layouts and work off of those and try to create something from it. So I think that was really cool. Like Fernando said, I love that when you were posting that stuff. I thought that stuff was awesome.
I'm just impressed by the, you know, it's a hell of an undertaking. I mean, you did a whole issue for free. And it's out there. You know, it's there you go. I love that. I love the brazenness of it all.
Well, I will say, and again, this is maybe I'm like the way. So Darwin used to always say, "Why do they always remake a good movie?" Like, you know, as you guys know, there are tons of remakes that are. I don't know if are those questions that are coming in. Is that?
We have a few questions, but that's not my Facebook making the beeping noise. So that could just be somebody's messenger or something like that.
Oh, maybe it's me. Right. Anyway, so what Darwin used to say was when there was, you know, when there would be a remake of something, he's like, why are they always remaking a good movie? Take a piece of shit movie that like the germ is there where it's like that could have been really good.
Yeah.
And then add like I'm trying to remember. I think at the time maybe there was that remake of The Thing, but they wanted to do the prequel. I'm trying to remember.
Oh yeah. Yes, that was a few years ago. It wasn't long ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think. Maybe that might not have been it because I don't know if Darwin was alive at that point. I feel like he was because it was something like that. It's like you can't remake John Carpenter's The Thing. It's so perfect, even though it's itself a remake of, you know, an old Howard Hawks movie. But that idea of like take something that was like so close to being good. So I think that's why I thought of like there's that big giant bathtub. Because that was probably the first page I broke down where I just went like, and there's a very funny moment where Domino gets out of the tub, and Rob drew her with chest forward, so the colorist had to color a bathing suit on her, and I was like, why wouldn't you redraw it and put her arm across her chest or have a towel come in? Like, why wouldn't you take that time to go? She's naked in the tub, but do the modesty comic book pose. So that was my thinking was like, I need to take this moment especially and just make it work. And then the rest of the book kind of blew out of that where I went like, well, if I want to draw that page, I guess I'll just
do the other 19.
I'll just do the whole book as an extra. Yeah.
So I have to give you some questions because this hour flew by for me and for Fernando and for everybody else. So I have to. I'm going to try to put them in an order that I think that is nice. Tim Grant wants to know: do you still do any work for animation?
Not for a long time. I actually did a little bit of design work on the New Frontier animation that you know.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. Like Darwin liked my women, so he had me doing I think I did Lois and who's Hal Jordan's girlfriend?
Carol Ferris.
Carol Ferris. Yeah. So there was some fashion stuff with her, just outfit changes more than anything.
Very cool. The next question is from Jordan Marshall. Do you feel like you can still keep improving and learning even after having been established for so long?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
In what ways, Jay? Oh,
Oh, that's bad when the guest starts interviewing himself.
that's
like
so funny. And then,
I think so. From one of the things I like doing, so since we're talking about the Liefeld thing, was giving yourself projects. Like, there's always room for growth. So work with somebody you haven't worked with before. Uh, adapt your favorite scene from a book, or giving yourself something besides just the work part of it. And then there's things like going to life drawing is always important. I always find if you're struggling with drawing something, find it. Like now with Google, everything is so easy to just find. You don't know how to draw a park bench, Google it.
yeah.
It just helps your art. Again, draw it in your style, but it'll help your artwork because you'll keep creating this visual this memory bank.
And then the last one is just a nice one. And I think it's important because you're talking about the figure drawings, and you post a ton of figure drawings and they're all incredible. And I think people should have to go to your pages and take a look at them. So, hey, could you share J.BONE's social media?
Social media, yeah. My Instagram is, I think it's the original. I'm just looking it up, pulling it up here. I always forget. It's original J.BONE.
And then, are you still on Twitter, or did you jump off Twitter?
No, I quit Twitter.
Yeah, yeah.
Stupid.
And you're on Facebook as well.
I'm on Facebook, but I would say if you're looking for my art, Instagram is really the only place, and I'll post all my life drawings on there. Drawing I love those contortionist guys, like either yoga poses or there's that guy named Rubber Legs who does crazy contort. Like I actually was drawing. I don't know if these will show. I was doing these today, so that is a guy doing crazy poses. That one's maybe a little clearer.
Wow.
Those are great.
Yeah, so his poses are insane, and I just was sitting here watching New Girl and doodling those.
That's great.
That's also another challenge. Is like, yeah, you can draw, the model posing as they do in life drawing, but when you can get a model to do, handstands and things like that, where you can't turn the page to see what things look like, you got to figure that out. So that's a good challenge. Maybe for the beginner though, like working into that.
No, just dive into the deep end of the pool. It's all going to be great. It's all going to be great.
Elbow. I have no idea.
Well, look, this was awesome. I really appreciate you jumping in today and spending the time and talking with us, and letting people listen to you, and having me ask you horrible questions for an hour. So it was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. I know, Fernando, you had to appreciate it too. Come on.
Oh yeah, no, this was a lot of fun, and it went as I knew it would, and I'm glad I got the chance to ask you about X-Force. And also too, Jay, we haven't had the chance to speak before this for a while. I just wanted to say you did a beautiful job on the Die Kitty Die cover.
Oh, thanks.
You did the cover for Die Kitty Die Starstruck, which is coming out soon, and it's beautiful. It's really it's great. I mean, that was like perfect for what we wanted. And I mean, given what you said earlier, it seems like it was right up your alley with hot chicks in space. With
I had a ton of probably like 10 different variations for that cover.
Oh man.
And my whole goal was like, all right, Die Kitty is the chick. That's the easy part. How do I get a monster in there?
Oh.
But I also was kind of like, oh, I want to get Beefcake in there too. So there's like the caveman dudes at the bottom.
That's great.
I like a way to get that stuff in. But I mean, I've known you and Dan for so long that I also know what you guys respond to. So there was also just like, oh yeah, and I pretty much knew exactly what to do, especially with Kitty.
Oh,
Especially at
it
this
was
point,
a perfect fit. It was a perfect fit. I mean,
right?
we didn't have too much thinking to do about who we wanted for the cover for this one.
Yeah,
So thank you very much for doing it.
my pleasure.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions or you'd like some more information on the Kubert School, be sure to visit www.kubertschool.edu or email us at info@kubertschool.edu. Every Saturday throughout the month of May, you can take a free sketch class at our Kubert School Facebook and YouTube channels. This week, we have the great Fernando Ruiz, who is going to be giving us a nice little lesson. Some fun characters, I'm sure, will be announced shortly. So 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to check it out. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow with special guest, executive editor of Dynamite, Joseph Ryband. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.